Hey everyone, Reid with Valor. What we're going to talk about in this video is my thoughts on the Trump administration's decisions to bomb Iran. Let's go ahead and get started. Well folks, oftentimes when things happen and we're usually not very happy about it, and when we have something major going on, a lot of times before I put a video out, I like to think about it, think about what's really upsetting, think about what the implications are for the nation, and give you guys a pretty base take on what's going on. I can tell you this right now, when I heard about this happening late last night, my first thought was just absolutely infuriating. You know, I was so mad that he had decided to, and I still am. I'm not happy about this at all, and I don't think that many of you watching this are probably very happy about that either. And then I started thinking about why am I so mad about it? You know, this is like, well, we've been at war now for a quarter of a century. You know, for most people that are in their 20s, they've been at war or have had conditions where the United States has been at war for their whole life. You know, I can't remember a decade of my entire life going back. I cannot remember an entire decade where we have not been involved in one or more wars. It's just absolutely insane to me, this constant state of warfare or hostilities towards other nations of some type. Whatever the excuse is, there's always going to be an excuse. There's always going to be a reason why the people that are neocons are going to want to go bomb and destroy and kill other people in other nations. And I get that there's always going to be a justification, but you know, what's really upsetting to me about this whole thing is that when I certainly went to the polls and voted for Donald Trump. I voted for him 3 times. And, you know, when I thought about it, and what's so upsetting is that when he talked about America first, which I still believe he does want America to succeed. I do think that he does a lot of good things. I do believe his administration has done a lot of good things already. On this issue of going and bombing Iran, first of all, he's got to realize how much time he truly has during this administration. I mean, he's got until the midterms. That's the only guarantee. We don't know what's going to happen in the midterms. They could lie, cheat, and steal their way back into another majority. And then, of course, his presidency's over at that point because they're not going to allow him to do anything. But up until that point, we've only got a certain amount of time. I voted for, number one, getting illegal criminal aliens out of the country, investigating bad actors in government, especially the intelligence community, especially people like James Comey, Clapper, Brennan, and the list goes on and on. Those people are truly criminals. Those people truly are traitors to this nation. Those people have abused their position of authority and should be investigated and arrested. You could say the same thing with sitting members of Congress, people like AOC inciting violence, people like Ilhan Omar has committed immigration fraud. You could talk about so many of these people that have committed crimes, proven so. And I guess the other thing that's really upsetting about it is that we've got a full-blown rebellion going on in this nation right now in many of the big cities across this country. You've got Los Angeles. I mean, it's been several weeks where they've done that, where they've had problems in that city, where they've burned people's stuff, their cars, they've set stuff on fire, they've prevented people from going to work, they've assaulted law enforcement, they've assaulted federal law enforcement, they've tried to take over federal buildings. And this is what's upsetting to me, is that stuff should be handled immediately, quickly, and swiftly. And it's not. You know, we were looking at people. How many people from the Epstein list have been arrested? You know, how many intelligence operatives have been arrested? How many people have been arrested when it came to Biden's auto pen usage? How many people knew that he was in a demented, Alzheimer's-ridden state and still managed to push him through 4 years of his administration? How many people knew about that? How about the Hunter Biden disinformation? There's what 51 intelligence officials said that it was disinformation, but it turned out, no, it wasn't disinformation. It was absolutely valid. You know, so we have all these scandals and these cover-ups and these crimes, and then we had a border that was undefended for 4 years. We have tens of millions of illegal aliens here, and quite honestly, if you want to use the military, use it at our border. You know, prevent this invasion from happening. You know, the United States military exists to defend the United States soil, territory, and citizens. That's what it exists for. And when you have a full-blown invasion of foreign nationals waving flags coming in here by the millions, just committing crimes at rates that are unprecedented, harming United States citizens, That's a major problem. So he needs to focus on those resources to put these criminals in prison, deport them, and then of course the citizens that are in government that are committing those crimes, those people need to be prosecuted. But nobody's been arrested yet. So I guess the crux of this whole thing is that we're willing to spend billions of dollars in technology, ordnance, manpower hours to go blow up stuff in another nation when our own nation is quite literally on fire. Our own nation's cities are burning and they're not doing anything about it. They're not arresting these people. You had hundreds of people assault an ICE facility in Portland and 5 people get arrested? When you have hundreds of people shooting commercial grade fireworks? You know, who's funding this stuff? You'd think it'd be easy to find. And if you're not going to use the intelligence apparatus to find these crimes, then it needs to be disbanded. I've always thought that this thing needs to be disbanded, full stop. I've always thought that we need to break up these intelligence communities. The Patriot Act was a farce. You know, of course it was designed as observations. Of course it was designed to spy on us. It needs to be completely dismantled. You know, they use the intelligence apparatus for January 6 people, but they can't find communist insurrectionists in this nation? I find that hard to believe. So here's the deal. We need to turn our resources on the true criminals of this country, which are involved in the intelligence, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, Office of Naval Intelligence. That stuff needs to be investigated. The Epstein stuff needs to be investigated. Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison right now. You'd think that you'd be able to get information from her. Where are all these thousands of videos and files that Attorney General Bondi says that she's had for several months now? You know, we're 5 months into this administration, folks. Who of any significance has been arrested? They spied on Trump's campaign. They raided Mar-a-Lago. Who ordered that? How about all the infringements on our First Amendment during COVID? How about all the vaccine stuff that happened and people never got in trouble for? How about all the violations of the Second Amendment that happen each and every day? That's what I voted for with Donald Trump, to fix and remedy these problems, not to bomb a foreign country and use our resources to do that. How many people have been harmed by Iran in this country? I don't know anybody. I certainly never have. I don't know anybody that has. I do know people that have been harmed by violent leftists. I do know people that have been harmed by illegal criminal aliens. I do know people that have been hurt and had their pursuit of happiness prevented from happening due to all these insurrectionists that are burning down American cities and have done so many, many times. And so I guess my message to President Trump is, and I guess what I'd really like to articulate to him and tell him is this: you will always be able to listen to people whispering in your ear that are part of the deep state apparatus. But when you've got people like Adam Kinzinger, people like Mike Pence, people like Lindsey Graham, people like Mark Levin that are happy that you bombed Iran, that's a clue that you're not on the right side of this issue. And when you've got people out there like your base, your MAGA base, there's almost 80 million people that put you in office that don't want this, that couldn't even have fathomed that you would bomb Iran even just a few short weeks ago, you got to start listening to the people when they say America first. You got to start listening to people and what they want you to do. And you've done a lot already, but you got to start listening to people. We want people held accountable for the crimes that they have committed against this nation and against patriots of this country. We want people held accountable. I want people to be thrown in prison that have spied on American citizens and said they didn't. I want people thrown in prison that have violently harmed federal law enforcement and police officers in this country who are upholding constitutional law of repelling invasions. I want people thrown in absolute prison who have been spied on, and I know that you got the resources to figure this stuff out. So those are my thoughts on the bombing of Iran. I think it's a completely unnecessary thing. I think it's a waste of time, money, resources. And if we really want to be America first, we need to start focusing on the problems that are here, of which there are many, but can be fixed. It's just an issue of will, foresight, motivation, and dedication to your base. That's what it's all about. We've got to start seeing people. And I'm tired of Cash going on Fox News. I'm tired of Pam Bondi going on Fox News. I'm tired of Bongino going on Fox News. And you can't talk a big, tough game when you're making tens of millions of dollars a year on your radio show and you finally get into a position where you're supposed to do anything, but nothing happens. Where are the arrests? Where are these people that need to be held accountable? Stop talking on Fox News and get to work. Start arresting people that covered up evidence at the FBI. Start arresting people who committed election fraud. Start investigating people who's funding all these insurrections and all these protests and riots in all these major cities. That's what needs to happen. But I'm tired of listening to these idiots on these talk shows and on Fox and going on there and talking tough and not delivering. It's been months since you're supposed to release the Epstein list. It's been months since all this stuff has happened. So, no disrespect to President Trump. I respect him a great deal. I know he's under a lot of pressure. But man, when you've got people like Lindsey Graham and Mark Levin and Mike Pence and Adam Kinzinger cheering on this decision, brother, you got to look inward and realize that they are not your friends and that you are not on the right side of this one. Let's reset and get back to America first. This is Reid Henrichs, Valor, reminding you the lessons that we learned are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.